My beloved child, hear this with trembling attention, because what you are about to receive is not light, not casual, and not meant for the crowd. This message carries weight. It carries warning. It carries consequence. Jesus is very angry, and his patience is gone. And before your heart resists those words, understand this clearly. Anger from Jesus is not rage like man's rage. It is the final moment before justice moves. It is the silence before thunder breaks the sky. Archangel Michael is standing beside you right now, not with comfort alone, but with urgency. His presence feels heavy because time is thinned. He had been sent not to entertain you, not to reassure you, but to make sure you cannot say you were not warned. This is not a message for everyone, because not everyone had been warned before. But you have, in ways you tried to ignore, in moments you brushed aside, through signs you explained away. This is why the title feels sharp. This is why your spirit felt uneasy when you saw it. Heaven does not shout without reason. Listen carefully. Jesus has extended mercy longer than you realize. He has delayed consequences you deserved. He has blocked outcomes that should have already arrived. But patience is not permission. Mercy is not approval. And grace does not cancel accountability. There comes a moment when heaven stops repeating itself. Archangel Michael says this plainly. You recognized the warning before, but you chose delay instead of obedience. That is why this moment is different. Something is about to shift in your life that will lock in a direction. Not because Jesus wants to harm you, but because he refuses to keep rescuing you from the same choice. The anger you sense is the anger of a king whose words were treated as optional. This message is not meant to scare you. It is meant to wake you before consequence replaces correction. Jesus is not angry because you struggled. He is not angry because you questioned. He is angry because you knew what to stop, what to leave, what to obey, and you postponed it while asking him for more blessings. Heaven does not function on half surrender. Archangel Michael is revealing something important now. There are two paths opening simultaneously. One looks familiar, comfortable, safe. It allows you to stay as you are. The other feels disruptive, costly, uncomfortable. That second path is obedience. And this is the final moment you will be invited to choose it consciously. If you choose the familiar again, heaven will not stop you. That is what should frighten you. Because when Jesus stops intervening, things don't explode immediately. They quietly unfold. Doors stop opening. Favor dries up. Protection lifts in subtle ways. And people later say, I don't know when it started going wrong. This is when it starts. You were warned before through conviction, through sleepless nights, through repeated patterns that refuse to break, through relationships that expose your heart. Those were not coincidences. Those were mercy signals. Now the tone has changed. Archangel Michael says, this is the message that seals accountability. Meaning, after this, you will not be able to say you didn't understand. There is a specific area of your life Jesus is addressing. You already know which one. I don't need to name it, because your spirit reacted the moment this sentence began. That area had been touched multiple times, and each time you delayed. You prayed for time, but time has already answered. Jesus is not negotiating anymore. He is instructing. This is why the message feels heavy. This is why distractions tried to stop you from opening it. This is why you almost scrolled past. Hell is not afraid of curiosity, but it fears obedience. And obedience is exactly what this message is pulling you toward. Hear this clearly. Opening this message already placed you in a decision window. Ignoring it after this will not erase it. Archangel Michael stands as a witness. In heaven, witnesses are assigned when decisions carry lasting weight. This is one of those moments, not because Jesus wants to condemn you, but because he refuses to let you destroy yourself while calling it grace. You are not being rejected. You are being confronted. And confrontation is love when time is short. There is still mercy available, but it requires immediate response, not delayed intention. Jesus is watching not your emotions, not your fear, but your action after this moment. Heaven responds to movement, not promises. Do not rush to interpret this with your mind alone. Sit with it. Let it press on your spirit. Because what is coming next will explain what happens if this warning is ignored and what shifts if you finally obey. This is the dividing line, and you are standing on it right now. Beloved one, what Archangel Michael reveals now is not meant to comfort you, but to clarify what had been confusing you for a long time. Many have mistaken silence from heaven as approval, but silence is often the final test before action. Jesus has been watching closely, not only what you pray but what you tolerate. And this is where the weight of this warning becomes personal. There has been a pattern repeating in your life that you secretly hoped would resolve itself. You told yourself that time would heal it, that circumstances would change, that people would mature, that temptation would weaken. But patterns do not break on their own. They only break when obedience interrupts them. And Jesus is angry not because the pattern exists, but because you recognized it and still chose comfort over correction. Archangel Michael speaks with sharp clarity here. He says, heaven already sent the answer, but it required sacrifice, so it was postponed. That postponement is what has stirred divine anger. Not a loud anger, not explosive, but a settled, resolved anger that says, enough delay. There is something you keep asking Jesus to bless while refusing to align it. You want peace without surrender, protection without obedience, favor without transformation. Jesus does not negotiate truth. He enforces it. You may feel this message pressing harder now because your excuses are running out. You have said, I'll change when things calm down, but calm never came. You said, I'll obey when I'm ready, but readiness never arrived. Readiness comes after obedience, not before it. And this is what you were warned about earlier. Archangel Michael reminds you of moments when your conscience spoke loudly. Moments when you felt conviction rise suddenly, uninvited. Moments when a door closed unexpectedly, or a plan failed without explanation. Those were not attacks. Those were restraints. Jesus was holding back outcomes you were not ready to face. But restraint has an expiration. The anger of Jesus now is directed at indecision. Heaven does not fear your weakness, but it does confront hesitation. Because hesitation, when truth is known, becomes rebellion disguised as patience. This is why the title says, you have been warned before. Because this is not the first signal. It is the final confirmation. The warning before was gentle. This one is firm. The next will not be verbal at all. Archangel Michael shows a vision of scales balancing. On one side is mercy already given. On the other side is responsibility ignored. The scales are no longer equal. Action is required to rebalance them. Not tomorrow. Not soon. Doubt. Jesus is not asking you to become perfect. He is asking you to become honest. Honest about what you need to stop. Honest about what you need to walk away from. Honest about what you need to surrender fully instead of managing secretly. Heaven sees what you justify in private. There is also a reason this message says it is not for everyone. Many people can delay without consequence because they have not been entrusted with much. But you have been. You have insight others don't, sensitivity others lack, callings others would mishandle, and with greater light comes greater accountability. Archangel Michael says something sobering here. Those who know more are corrected sooner. That correction is happening now. If you ignore it, correction turns into consequence, not because Jesus desires it, but because justice must protect what mercy could not persuade. This is why you feel exposed, even though no one else knows what this message is touching. Heaven is not interested in public shame. It is interested in private obedience. But private obedience must happen before public impact can continue. Jesus is not angry with your tears. He is angry with your delays. He is not offended by your questions. He is offended by your compromises. He has answered you more than once, and each time you asked again, hoping for a different instruction. But the instruction does not change you. Archangel Michael places emphasis on this moment as a hinge point. A hinge does not look dramatic, but it determines the direction of the door. What you choose now determines whether doors ahead open toward light or close quietly behind you. Do not confuse this warning with rejection. This is actually evidence of how closely Jesus hath been guarding you. Many people receive no warning at all. They simply experience the outcome. You are still being spoken to. That alone tells you mercy is still available. But mercy is now tied to response. The reason this message feels intense is because it must compete with your distractions, your habits, your fear of change. Heaven is cutting through the noise. Jesus is not raising his voice, but he is no longer softening his words. What happens next depends on whether you treat this as information or instruction. Information can be acknowledged and ignored. Instruction demands movement. Archangel Michael stands ready, not to fight against you, but to stand with you if you choose obedience. He is a warrior, but he is also a protector of alignment. He does not defend disobedience. He defends those who step into truth even when it costs them. Something will be removed if you ignore this. Something will be restored if you obey. That is the reality being set before you. And as this unfolds further, you will understand exactly what is at stake and why this warning came now, not later. My dear one, what Archangel Michael reveals now carries both mercy and consequence in the same breath. This is the part many never reach, not because heaven hides it, but because most people turn away when truth becomes personal. If you are still here, it is because something inside you knows this is not accidental. Jesus is angry. Yes, but his anger is not the end of the story. It is the final boundary before release or restraint. Think of a parent who has warned again and again, not out of control, but out of love that refuses to watch destruction continue. That is the posture of heaven toward you right now. Archangel Michael says something that should stop you internally. He says this warning is not about punishment. It is about permission. Permission for what? Permission for things to move forward without interference. Permission for outcomes to unfold without divine interruption. Permission for your choice to finally carry its full weight. Until now, Jesus has been stepping in quietly, blocking certain laws, delaying certain exposures, redirecting certain outcomes you were not prepared to face. That is why some situations never went as far as they should have. That was not luck. That was restraint. But restraint cannot remain where obedience is refused. This is the moment where heaven says, choose alignment or choose autonomy. Autonomy feels empowering at first, but it removes covering. Alignment feels restrictive at first, but it multiplies protection. Jesus is angry because you keep asking for protection while resisting alignment. There is one decision, one act of obedience, one separation you have been postponing. You keep hoping it will become easier, but obedience rarely gets easier with time. It gets heavier when delayed. What once required courage now requires urgency. Archangel Michael emphasizes that after this moment, your spiritual excuses will no longer hold weight. Not because Jesus is cruel, but because clarity removes innocence. Once you see clearly, delay becomes choice. This is why accountability is mentioned in the title. Accountability does not mean condemnation. It means ownership. Heaven is handing responsibility back to you. What happens next will no longer be something you can blame on timing, people, or circumstances. There is also a promise here, and it is important you hear it fully. If you obey now, not perfectly, but sincerely, Jesus will restore what delay threatened to your road. Favor can return quickly when alignment is immediate. Peace can flood suddenly when compromise is removed. Protection can re-establish when surrender is complete. But obedience must be decisive. Archangel Michael shows that partial obedience will not carry the same result this time. Half steps will not unlock full covering. This is not because heaven is harsh, but because the moment is advanced. You are not being treated as a beginner. You are being treated as someone entrusted with understanding. There is also a quiet urgency here. This window is not indefinite. Conviction has a shelf life. Ignore it long enough, and the heart learns to silence it. Jesus is intervening now because he does not want your heart to harden beyond sensitivity. Pause for a moment and notice what is rising inside you. Is it resistance? Fear? Sadness? Relief? That reaction is revealing what this message is touching. Heaven is not asking you to feel brave. He is asking you to act faithful. And listen closely here, because this is important. What comes next in this message will explain how this decision affects not just you, but others connected to you. The impact reaches further than you think. Hold on, because what follows brings clarity that many wish they had heard earlier. Before moving forward, understand this clearly. You did not open this message by chance. You were guided here because heaven still sees value in you. This warning exists because there is still something worth protecting. Now, as instructed, take a moment to seal this in faith. Type "I choose obedience" in the comments if this message is speaking directly to your spirit. Blessing code 909 has just been released. The Lord says, when you sow into what awakens souls, I breathe life back into what was fading in yours. If this message has reached you at the exact moment you needed it, then your support becomes more than generosity. It becomes obedience in action. I feel led to tell you plainly, this channel exists to release warnings before consequences, light before darkness, and direction before delay. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description, you are sowing seed into ground that rescues others before it is too late. Scripture declares that those who water others will themselves be watered, and this is God speaking directly to you now. Do not delay this act if your spirit is stirred. Release your seed today and watch heaven respond with protection, clarity, and restored favor over your life. What Archangel Michael reveals next will explain how ignoring this warning alters timelines, and how obedience realigns them faster than you expect. Beloved soul, what unfolds now is the part most people never understand until it is too late. Archangel Michael speaks of timelines, not as abstract ideas, but as living paths that respond to obedience or resistance. Every warning you receive is tied to a window in time. When the window closes, the same choice no longer produces the same result. Jesus is angry because you are standing at a narrowing gate. Earlier obedience would have required less cost. Later obedience will require repair. This is not said to frighten you, but to awaken you to the seriousness of delay. Heaven does not punish lateness, but it does adjust outcomes when timing is ignored. Archangel Michael explains that when a warning is repeated, it means a timeline is being preserved for you. When a warning becomes firm, it means that timeline is about to collapse into another. That is what is happening now. Two futures are still visible, but one is fading quickly. The future tied to obedience is not easy, but it is protected. The future tied to delay is familiar, but it is exposed. Jesus had been standing between you and certain consequences. You sensed it when situations stopped short of disaster. You noticed it when things that should have escalated somehow dissolved. That was not coincidence. That was intervention. But intervention has limits when free will refuses correction. Archangel Michael shows that heaven never removes protection suddenly. It withdraws it gradually, giving the heart one last chance to return. This is that chance. There is something sobering you need to understand now. If you ignore this warning, Jesus will not chase you with fear or force. You will honor your choice by allowing the lesson to teach what mercy could not. And lessons without mercy are heavier than warnings with grace. You may ask, why does Jesus sound so firm now? Because love that refuses to confront becomes permissive, and permissiveness destroys what it claims to protect. His anger is not against you, but against the path you are drifting toward. Archangel Michael says that some of the battles ahead are avoidable, but only through immediate alignment. Not prayer alone, not intention alone. Alignment. That means removing what you were told to remove, ending what you were told to end, stepping into what you were told to step into. This is where many misunderstand spiritual warfare. They pray against resistance while holding on to the very thing that invites it. They ask for peace while feeding compromise. Jesus is no longer tolerating the contradiction in you. He sees your potential clearly. That is why the warning is precise. You were not created for small cycles, repeated failures, or quiet frustration. But potential does not excuse disobedience. In fact, it increases accountability. Archangel Michael shows an image of a door slowly closing. Not cyan, not forced, just closing as time passes. The door represents opportunity that only obedience can access. If it closes, another door may open later, but it will not lead to the same place. This is why heaven speaks now. You may feel pressure rising in your chest, a sense that something must change. That is not anxiety. That is alignment knocking. Anxiety pushes you into fear. Alignment pulls you into truth. Learn to discern the difference. Jesus is not asking you to figure out every step ahead. He's asking for the next step you already know. Obedience is rarely complex. It is often simple and costly. The complexity comes from our resistance. Archangel Michael says that when obedience is delayed, clarity fades. What once felt obvious becomes confusing. That confusion is not from God. It is the fog created by postponement. That is why this message feels sharp. It cuts through fog. There is also restoration attached to this moment that you have not yet seen. Certain blessings have been paused, not canceled. Certain prayers have been held, not denied. They are waiting on alignment. Heaven does not reward compromise with fulfillment. Jesus is angry because he wants to release what you keep asking for. But release without alignment would destroy you. Blessings out of season become burdens. Favor without character becomes exposure. He is protecting you from answers that would harm you if given too soon. Archangel Michael reminds you that obedience now does not erase the past, but it does redeem the future. Delay does not disqualify you, but continued delay reshapes the path ahead. This is the weight of accountability, not shame, not condemnation. Responsibility. You are not alone in this moment. Heaven is watching closely, not to accuse, but to respond. Angels move when decisions are made, not when intentions are spoken. The moment you choose alignment, movement begins. Do not underestimate the power of a single obedient act done at the right time. It can restore years that delay threatened to waste. It can close doors that would have led to loss. It can reopen favor you thought was gone. But it must happen now. As this message continues, Archangel Michael will reveal what shifts immediately when obedience is chosen, and what silently unravels when it is not. The contrast is sharper than you expect, and understanding it may be the clarity you need to move forward without hesitation. My precious one, Archangel Michael now draws your attention to something that has been quietly forming beneath the surface of your life. It is not obvious to others, but it has been building momentum. This is why the warning has escalated. Jesus does not interrupt without cause, and he does not confront without purpose. What you are facing now is the result of accumulated moments, not a sudden reaction. There is a spiritual law at work that many overlook. What is tolerated slowly becomes permitted, and what is permitted eventually becomes defended. Jesus is angry because he sees you beginning to defend what you were once convicted about. Not openly, not aggressively, but subtly. You explain it. You justify it. You compare it to others. That shift matters more than you realize. Archangel Michael explains that heaven tracks direction more than speed. You may feel like you are standing still, but spiritually, no one ever is. You are either moving closer to alignment or drifting toward exposure. Neutral ground does not exist when truth has already been revealed. This is why earlier warnings were gentle. Evan hoped and Vivian would grab. But now, direction has continued long enough that correction must become firm. Jesus is not surprised by your struggle. He is responding to your trajectory. There is also grief in this anger. Not grief that blames, but grief that knows what could have been avoided. Jesus sees paths you would never choose if you could see their end now. That is why he interrupts now, before momentum carries you further than intention ever planned. Archangel Michael reveals that some of your prayers have been delayed not because of lack of faith, but because of conflict. Not spiritual attack alone, but internal contradiction. You cannot walk toward freedom while holding chains you were told to release. Heaven waits for coherence between your prayers and your choices. You may feel tired, like you have been wrestling the same thing for too long. That exhaustion is not weakness. It is evidence that the old way is no longer sustainable. Grace carried you until now, but grace also signals when it is time to move on. Jesus is angry because remaining where you are will cost you more than leaving ever would. What feels safe now will become restrictive later. What feels costly now will become protective later. Timing changes the price of obedience. Archangel Michael shows that if you obey now, certain losses will be minimized. If you delay, the same correction will come through circumstances rather than conviction. Conviction is the gentle compared to consequence. That is why this message exists. There is also something being preserved for you. A will, an assignment, a connection, a season that requires clarity. Jesus is not angry because he wants to remove you. He is angry because he wants to position you correctly before what comes next. But positioning requires movement. You have been asking for clarity, but clarity follows obedience more often than it precedes it. Heaven gives enough light for the next step, not the entire journey. And the next step has already been illuminated. Archangel Michael speaks plainly here. He says, "What you refuse to confront voluntarily will confront you involuntarily." That is not a threat. It is a principle. Truth will surface either through choice or through exposure. Jesus prefers the first, but he will allow the second if necessary. There is also a subtle warning about relationships and environments. Certain spaces have normalized what should trouble you. Certain voices have softened what should sharpen you. Jesus is angry because discernment hath been dulled by familiarity. What once felt wrong now feels normal, and that is dangerous. Heaven is restoring sensitivity now. The discomfort you feel is discernment returning. Do not silence it. Do not numb it. Do not explain it away. It is a gift. Archangel Michael reminds you that obedience is not about losing joy. It is about protecting it. Disobedience always promises relief, but delivers erosion. Obedience often feels heavy at first, but produces peace that does not depend on circumstances. Jesus is not asking you to punish yourself. He is asking you to align yourself. Alignment removes friction. Misalignment creates resistance. Much of the struggle you have felt is not attack, but friction from walking against instruction. As this truth settles, you may feel a mix of sorrow and relief. Sorrow for time lost, relief for clarity gained. Both are valid. Heaven is not shaming you for what has passed. It is summoning you to what is still possible. This is not the end of your story. It is the end of delay. What Archangel Michael will reveal next is how obedience immediately shifts spiritual atmosphere, even before circumstances change. Understanding this will strengthen you to move forward without fear, because what happens internally first determines what unfolds externally. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now shifts your attention from what has been wrong to what becomes possible the moment obedience begins. Many believe change starts when circumstances improve, but heaven operates differently. Change begins when alignment is restored, even if nothing around you looks different yet. This is why Jesus is pressing this moment so firmly. He knows what unlocks immediately when you respond. The atmosphere around a person shifts before their situation does. When obedience is chosen, resistance weakens, confusion lifts, and spiritual pressure eases. You may not see instant results, but you will feel them. Peace returns first. Clarity follows. Then movement begins. This is the order of heaven. Archangel Michael explains that many battles you have been fighting were never meant to be fought. They were meant to be avoided through alignment. Warfare increases when instruction is ignored, not when faith is weak. Jesus is angry because you have been exhausted unnecessarily. There is a covering that returns when obedience is immediate. Not because you earn it, but because you step back under it. You were never meant to operate uncovered. Independence feels strong, but it is vulnerable. Alignment may feel restrictive, but it is guarded. You may wonder why obedience feels so heavy right now. It is because resistance has momentum. Once movement begins, the weight lessens. The first step always feels hardest because it breaks inertia. Heaven understands this. That is why grace is present in this moment. Archangel Michael reassures you that obedience does not erase your personality, your desires, or your future. It refines them. Jesus does not destroy what he corrects. He redirects it. What you surrender is not lost. It is purified. There is also something important you must hear now. Obedience does not mean everything becomes easy. It means everything becomes purposeful. Struggle without purpose drains you. Struggle with purpose strengthens you. Jesus is not promising comfort. He is promising direction. Heaven has already prepared assistance for the moment you move. Angels are assigned to align paths, not delayed ones. Help appears when direction is chosen. This is why waiting for motivation rarely works. Movement produces motivation, not the other way around. Archangel Michael says that once you obey, certain temptations will lose their grip faster than you expect. Not because they vanish, but because their authority weakens. Temptation feeds on indecision. When a decision is made, its power diminishes. You have been closer to breakthrough than you realize. Delay made it feel distant. Obedience makes it reachable. Jesus is angry because you have been standing within reach but refusing to extend your hand. This message is also reaching you because others are watching your life more closely than you think. Your obedience affects more than you. It creates permission for others to follow truth without fear. Heaven values that ripple. And now let me speak to you directly, heart to heart. If this message is resonating, if you feel conviction mixed with hope, do not keep it to yourself. Engage with it. Respond outwardly as well as inwardly. Take a moment to like this message so it reaches those who are still delaying. Share it with someone who needs a wake-up call they cannot ignore. Leave a comment declaring your intention to walk in alignment, because public confession strengthens private resolve. If you have not already, subscribe to this channel and stay connected. These messages are not random uploads. They are timely warnings and instructions meant to reach you before consequences do. When you stay connected, you stay informed. When you stay informed, you stay protected. Join the community here, because walking this path alone makes obedience feel heavier than it needs to be. Heaven never intended isolation. Alignment flourishes in accountability. Archangel Michael emphasizes that engagement is not about numbers or platforms. It is about agreement. When you interact with this message, you are not supporting a channel. You are affirming truth in a world that avoids it. That agreement matters in the spiritual realm. And this settles, notice how your resistance has softened. That is not coincidence. That is clarity beginning to replace confusion. Do not rush past this moment. Let it anchor. And hold on, because what comes next will explain why some people obey and still struggle, while others obey and accelerate rapidly. Understanding this distinction will change how you move forward and prevent unnecessary discouragement. Trust me, you will want to hear this before making your next move. Beloved child, Archangel Michael now reveals a distinction that explains why obedience produces different outcomes for different people. Many obey partially and wonder why resistance continues. Others obey fully and feel acceleration almost immediately. The difference is not favor. It is posture. Heaven responds not only to what you do, but to how completely you release control. Jesus is angry because your obedience, when it did appear, often came with conditions. You obeyed while keeping an exit plan. You surrendered while watching the door behind you. You said yes, but only as long as the cost stayed within what felt manageable. Heaven recognizes that posture instantly. Partial obedience creates internal conflict. One part of you moves forward while another part holds back. And division weakens authority. When authority is weak, opposition feels stronger than it actually is. This is why some struggles persisted even after you tried to do the right thing. Archangel Michael explains that obedience must be whole to be effective. Not perfect, but whole. Whole obedience means you stop negotiating internally. You may still feel fear, but you no longer let fear decide. You may still feel attachment, but you no longer let attachment lead. Jesus is angry because he hath been calling you into wholeness, not effort. Effort tries harder. Wholeness lets go deeper. Effort exhausts you. Wholeness stabilizes you. This is also why comparison hath been dangerous for you. You saw others delay and remain comfortable, and you assumed the same grace applied equally. But grace is tailored to calling. Those entrusted with less are corrected less urgently. Those entrusted with more are confronted sooner. This is not favoritism. It is stewardship. Archangel Michael says plainly, you are not being rushed because you are failing. You are being pressed because you are capable. Heaven does not accelerate what cannot sustain speed. The pressure you feel is evidence of capacity, not rejection. There is something else you must understand now. Obedience does not remove all resistance instantly, but it changes the nature of resistance. Instead of blocking you, resistance begins to train you. Instead of draining you, it sharpens you. This shift happens when obedience is complete. Jesus is angry because you have been living beneath your spiritual authority while asking him to fight battles you were meant to command. Authority is restored through alignment. Without alignment, authority leaks. Archangel Michael shows an image of armor that fits correctly only when all straps are fastened. One loose strap does not remove the armor, but it makes movement awkward and vulnerable. That loose strap in your life has been hesitation. Tightening it requires trust. You may fear that full obedience will cost you something you love. In truth, delay will cost you something you need. What you love may be refined, redirected, or replaced, but what you need is protection, clarity, and peace. Jesus prioritizes what sustains you, not what distracts you. There is also a warning here about misinterpreting silence. When you obey fully, heaven does not always speak immediately. Silence after obedience is not abandonment. It is stabilization. Heaven allows your soul to settle into alignment before releasing the next instruction. Do not rush that quiet. Archangel Michael cautions that impatience after obedience can reopen doors you just closed. When peace returns, protect it. Do not test it by revisiting what was surrendered. Do not romanticize what nearly cost you direction. Jesus is angry because he has watched you reopen doors out of curiosity, nostalgia, or fear of loss. Obedience must include restraint. Freedom requires boundaries. Without them, you circle back to the same place with more weariness than before. You are being trained now, not punished. Training feels demanding because it prepares you for weight. Jesus is not interested in temporary relief. He's preparing you for sustained authority that requires discipline. Archangel Michael says that once obedience is complete, discernment sharpens quickly. You will sense misalignment faster. You will recognize distraction sooner. You will feel peace withdraw when something is off. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is maturity. Do not be alarmed if certain relationships or habits lose appeal rapidly. That is not loss. It is alignment clarifying preference. What once entertained you may no longer satisfy you. That is growth. Jesus is angry because you kept mistaking discomfort for danger. Discomfort often signals transformation. Danger often arrives quietly and feels familiar. Learn to discern my fruit, not feeling. As this settles, you may notice a growing resolve. Not loud, not dramatic, quiet and firm. It is the posture heaven had been waiting for. When resolve replaces negotiation, movement accelerates. What Archangel Michael will reveal next is how obedience affects not only your path forward, but your spiritual protection during what is coming globally and personally. This understanding is crucial, because obedience does not just change outcomes, it changes coverage. and coverage determine survival in seasons of shaking. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks about protection, not as an abstract promise, but as a living covering that responds to alignment. Many people assume protection is automatic, but heaven operates on order. Protection flows most strongly where obedience is active. This is why this warning carries such urgency. Jesus is not withdrawing love, he is exposing reality. There are seasons ahead, both personal and global, where neutrality will no longer feel safe. Not because danger increases suddenly, but because contrast sharpens. Light and shadow become more distinct. Those who are aligned will feel steadiness even when circumstances shake. Those who are misaligned will feel pressure even when things appear calm. Jesus is angry because he sees storms forming that obedience would help you walk through without panic. Disobedience does not always cause storms, but it does remove shelter. Alignment does not prevent storms, but it determines whether you are covered or exposed while they pass. Archangel Michael explains that obedience is not just about morality or discipline. It is about positioning. Where you stand determines what can reach you. Some outcomes only touch those who remain in certain places spiritually, emotionally, or relationally. Movement changes reach. You have been warned because heaven wants you positioned correctly before pressure increases. This is mercy, not threat. Many people will not receive warnings. They will only feel the impact. You are still being instructed because you are still being protected. There is something specific you must understand here. Protection is not only about what happens to you, but what passes through you. When you are aligned, fear does not take root. Confusion does not linger. Despair does not dominate. You may feel them briefly, but they do not stay. This alignment allows things to linger longer than they should. Jesus is angry because he has watched unnecessary weight sit on your spirit. Not because life is heavy, but because alignment would have released it faster. He does not want you carrying burdens you were never meant to internalize. Archangel Michael shows that obedience creates a boundary. That boundary does not isolate you from the world, but it filters what is allowed to shape you. Without boundaries, even good intentions become draining. With boundaries, even difficult seasons become formative instead of destructive. Here is also a warning about false peace. False peace comes from avoiding decisions. True peace comes from making them. Jesus is angry because you mistook avoidance for peace and called it rest. Rest without alignment becomes stagnation. You are being invited into a deeper form of peace now, one that exists even when answers are incomplete. That peace is a byproduct of obedience, not certainty. Certainty often comes later. Archangel Michael says that once you move into alignment fully, you will notice a change in how quickly you recover. Setbacks will not linger as long. Disappointments will not derail you as deeply. Emotional wounds will heal faster. That is not because life becomes easier, but because protection increases. Your assignments ahead that require clarity and stamina. Jesus is angry because delay weakens stamina. Obedience strengthens it. He is preparing you for longevity, not just survival. This is also why some people drift out of your life during alignment. It is not punishment. It is protection. Not everyone is meant to walk into the next season with you. Holding on to them out of fear would expose you to unnecessary conflict. Archangel Michael reassures you that obedience does not mean isolation. It means alignment with the right connections. New support often appears after old attachments are released. Heaven fills space when space is made. As this message deepens, pause and notice how your understanding has shifted since the beginning. What felt harsh now feels clear. What felt heavy now feels purposeful. at his discernment sharpening. Now, seal this moment. Type "I stand under divine covering" in the comments if you receive this word. Blessing code 1441 is now activated over your obedience. The Lord says, "Those who help me warn my people will never lack protection themselves." If this message has strengthened you, then your support becomes part of someone else's shelter. I am speaking to you directly now. When you give through Super Thanks membership, with a PayPal link in the description, you are sowing into a river of warning, correction, and protection that reaches souls before harm does. Scripture declares that those who build the wall will share in the security of the city, and this is that moment. Do not delay if your spirit feels the nudge. Release your seed now and watch how heaven establishes covering, favor, and peace over your household. What Archangel Michael reveals next will explain how obedience affects timing itself, and why some delays suddenly collapse once alignment is complete. This understanding will prepare you for rapid shifts that may arrive sooner than you expect. Beloved soul, Archangel Michael now speaks about timing, because this is where many misunderstand what obedience actually does. People assume obedience only changes behavior, but in the spiritual realm, obedience alters clocks. It compresses seasons, accelerates outcomes, and collapses delays that once felt permanent. This is why Jesus has been so firm with you. He knows how much time has already been preserved on your behalf. There are delays in your life that were never meant to be permanent. They existed only to protect you until alignment was possible. But protection that lasts too long without movement becomes stagnation. Jesus is angry because what was meant to pause you has begun to hold you back. Archangel Michael explains that heaven measures readiness differently than humans do. Humans measure readiness by comfort, resources, and certainty. Heaven measures readiness by surrender, obedience, and trust. You may feel unready because conditions are not ideal, but heaven sees readiness because alignment is finally within reach. This is why some things will move quickly once you obey. Not gradually, not slowly, wiggly. It may feel sudden to you, but it will not be sudden to heaven. Those shifts have been queued, waiting for a single decision to release them. Jesus is angry because delay has cost you momentum. Momentum is not just speed, it is direction reinforced by consistency. The longer you remain misaligned, the more energy it takes to restart movement. Obedience restores momentum by removing resistance. Archangel Michael shows that once alignment is complete, time itself seems to cooperate. Appointments line up. Conversations happen unexpectedly. Opportunities surface without forcing. This is not coincidence. It is synchronization. Heaven aligns external timing with internal obedience. But there is also a warning here. Accelerated timing requires disciplined focus. When things begin to move faster, distraction becomes more dangerous, not less. Jesus is angry because you have underestimated how much discipline the next season will require. Speed without focus leads to burnout. Acceleration without obedience leads to collapse. Heaven will not accelerate you into destruction. That is why alignment must come first. There is also something deeply comforting in this revelation. Lust time is not always lust forever. When obedience is immediate, restoration can be rapid. Not everything returns, but what matters most can be redeemed. Jesus is not promising to rewind your life. He is promising to redeem your future. Archangel Michael says that some of the urgency you feel is not pressure from heaven, but awareness returning to your spirit. You are seeing how much has been delayed, and that awareness is painful. Do not let regret paralyze you. Let it motivate you. Regret looks backward and condemns. Conviction looks forward and instructs. Jesus is offering conviction, not condemnation. He's pointing you toward what can still be built. You may notice impatience rising now, a desire for everything to change immediately. Be careful here. Impatience can mimic urgency but lead you into shortcuts. Obedience never requires shortcuts. It requires consistency. Archangel Michael cautions that when timing accelerates, temptation often shifts form. Instead of pulling you backward, it may try to pull you sideways. Distractions will appear that look harmless but dilute focus. Not everything that is good is aligned. Jesus is angry because you have previously confused opportunity with assignment. In the next season, discernment must guide decisions more than excitement. Alignment determines sustainability. There is also a relational aspect to timing. Some people will reconnect unexpectedly once obedience is established. Others will fade permanently. Do not cling to what fades. It is making room for what fits the new pace. Carrying unnecessary weight slows acceleration. Archangel Michael shows that once obedience is complete, spiritual resistance does not disappear, but it loses leverage. It can no longer delay timing, only test endurance. That is a significant shift. Testing refines. Delay frustrates. You are moving from frustration into refinement. Jesus is angry because he wants to encrust you with influence, insight, and responsibility that cannot coexist with hesitation. The next season requires decisiveness. Not impulsiveness, but clarity. This is why the earlier warning was so strong. Heaven was not trying to frighten you. It was trying to wake you before timing shifted without you. Now, timing is still responsive. That will not always be the case. Archangel Michael emphasizes that obedience today has exponential effect tomorrow. One aligned decision now can remove months of struggle later. That is the mercy still available to you. As this part settles, you may feel a mix of anticipation and fear. That is natural. Anticipation recognizes possibility. Fear recognizes responsibility. Do not let fear decide. Let alignment lead. And before you move on, pause with this truth for a moment. Timing is already responding to what you are choosing internally right now. The next revelation will show you how to guard what obedience unlocks, because acceleration without protection can undo progress quickly. Stay with this, because what comes next will help you protect what is about to move. You will want to hear this before you take your next step. Beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks with the calm authority of a guardian who knows that movement has begun. When timing shifts and acceleration starts, protection must be maintained intentionally. This is where many stumble, not because they disobeyed, but because they became careless after alignment brought relief. Jesus is angry because he has seen victories undone by neglect. What obedience unlocks must be guarded by discipline. Alignment opens doors, but wisdom keeps them open. When peace returns, it is tempting to relax boundaries, revisit old habits, or re-entertain voices that were removed for a reason. Relief can become vulnerability if discernment is lowered. Archangel Michael explains that obedience is not a single act. It is a posture. A posture must be maintained. When posture collapses, strain returns. Jesus does not want you cycling back into exhaustion after tasting freedom. That is why this instruction comes now, before momentum increases further. There will be moments ahead when things feel lighter. That lightness is not permission to drift. It is confirmation that alignment is working. Guard it. Protect your routines. Protect your focus. Protect your inner life. The enemy does not always attack what is failing. He often targets what is finally working. Jesus is angry because he has watched you rebuild walls only to leave gates unattended. Gates are access points. What you allow in shapes what remains out. In the next season, you must be selective with what receives your attention, your time, and your emotional energy. Archangel Michael warns that distraction will be subtle. It will not look like rebellion. It will look like busyness, overextension, or harmless indulgence. None of these are evil, but misaligned priorities weaken strength. Strength is required for what is coming. You are stepping into a phase where consistency matters more than intensity. You do not need dramatic gestures. You need faithful rhythm. Small daily alignment sustains large seasonal breakthroughs. Jesus values endurance over bursts of effort. There is also a call here to remain teachable. Alignment does not mean arrival. It means correct direction. Pride can creep in quietly when progress appears. Jesus resists pride not because he withholds blessing, but because pride blocks correction. Correction keeps you safe. Archangel Michael shows that humility preserves acceleration. When you remain open to adjustment, heaven keeps fine-tuning your path. When you resist feedback, even divine feedback, progress slows. Stay soft. Stay responsive. You may also notice that opposition changes tone. Instead of chaos, it may present as subtle doubt or self-reliance. You've got this now. It will whisper. That voice sounds empowering but removes dependence. Jesus is angry because independence masquerading as strength had derailed many. Dependence on God is not weakness. It is alignment maintained. You did not get here alone, and you will not sustain it alone. Stay connected. Now, pause for a moment and engage with this message outwardly. If this word is clarifying and strengthening you, let it travel further. Like this message so it reaches those who are still unguarded after breakthrough. Share it with someone who has just stepped into alignment and needs to protect it. Leave a comment declaring that you will guard what obedience unlocks, because declarations reinforce discipline. If you have not yet subscribed, do so now. Staying connected to these timely messages keeps your discernment sharp. This channel exists to warn, guide, and steady you before missteps cost momentum. Subscription is not about loyalty to a platform. It is about consistency and instruction. Join this community and stay close. Acceleration is safer when you are not walking alone. Heaven always provides structure around growth. Archangel Michael emphasizes that engagement is part of guarding alignment. When you actively participate in truth, it stays active in you. Passive listening fades. Active response anchors. As you move forward, remember this. Obedience opened the door. Discipline keeps you inside. Protection is maintained through awareness, not fear. You do not need to be anxious. You need to be attentive. Jesus is no longer angry in the same way he was at the beginning of this message. His anger has done its work. It has redirected you. What remains now is expectation. Expectation that you will steward what you have been given. Do not rush. Do not drift. Walk steadily. What Archangel Michael reveals next will address the final testing phase that often appears before full stabilization. Understanding this will prevent discouragement and help you recognize confirmation instead of questioning it. His next insight is crucial for finishing strong and remaining aligned for the long term. Beloved child, Archangel Michael now speaks of the final testing phase, the one that confuses many because it arrives after obedience, not before it. This test does not appear to stop you, but to confirm you. Jesus allows it not out of anger, but out of wisdom. What is confirmed can be trusted. What is trusted can be entrusted with more. This phase often feels strange because it does not look like the battles you expected. There may be no obvious opposition, no dramatic resistance, no visible threat. Instead, you may experience quiet moments where old thoughts resurface, where former desires knock softly, where questions whisper, "Was this really necessary?" That is not regression. That is examination. Archangel Michael explains that heaven tests alignment by stillness as much as by pressure. Noise reveals fear. Silence reveals conviction. When things grow quiet, what you truly believe rises to the surface. Jesus watches not to judge, but to see what remains when emotion fades. You may feel an unusual calm mixed with uncertainty. Calm because alignment has restored peace. Uncertainty because the next step has not yet been revealed. This is intentional. Jesus is teaching you to trust direction without demanding details. Faith matures when it can wait without wandering. Jesus is no longer angry here. His posture has shifted to observation. Anger confronted delay. Observation confirms obedience. This is progress, even if it does not feel dramatic. Archangel Michael says that during this phase, many are tempted to self-sabotage out of familiarity. The old chaos felt known. The new peace feels unfamiliar. Do not mistake familiarity for safety. Peace may feel quiet, but it is stable. Chaos may feel energetic, but it is draining. There is also a temptation to rush ahead, to force movement because waiting feels uncomfortable. Be careful. Forced movement breaks rhythm. Heaven's timing is precise. What is meant to move will move without manipulation. You may notice that certain prayers feel suspended. Not denied. Suspended. This is not rejection. It is calibration. Heaven is aligning outcomes with your new posture. That alignment takes patience. Archangel Michael reminds you that patience is not passivity. It is active trust. You remain obedient. You remain disciplined. You remain attentive. You simply stop striving. This is where many fail. They obey, then panic when immediate results do not appear. Panic leads to interference. Interference delays manifestation. Jesus is teaching you to remain steady. There is also a refining of motivation happening now. Earlier, fear of consequence may have driven obedience. Now, love of alignment must sustain it. Virnit hits chin. Love maintains it. Jesus desires the second. Archangel Michael shows that this phase strengthens your spiritual muscles. Muscles grow not during effort, but during rest after effort. Rest does not mean inactivity. It means recovery. Allow your spirit to recover. You may also experience heightened discernment. Things that once felt appealing now feel hollow. Conversations that once energized you now feel draining. This is not arrogance. It is alignment clarifying appetite. Do not apologize for it. Honor it. Jesus is preparing you for stability. Stability is different from excitement. Excitement comes and goes. Stability endures. Heaven values endurance because it produces fruit that lasts. There is also a quiet joy available now. Not loud happiness, but settled contentment. Many overlook it because it does not shout. Receive it. It is a sign of alignment taking root. Archangel Michael cautions you not to announce this phase prematurely. Some things are meant to be lived before they are shared. Protection increases when growth is allowed to mature privately. Not every confirmation needs an audience. You may feel tempted to seek reassurance from people. Resist that urge. People can affirm or confuse. Heaven confirms internally. Trust what has been established within you. This phase will not last forever. Confirmation gives way to commissioning. Stillness gives way to movement. But if you rush through confirmation, commissioning will carry instability. Jesus is patient now because he is building something durable. Notice how far you have come since the beginning of this message. What felt confrontational now feels clarifying. What felt heavy now feels grounding. The transformation did not come from information alone. It came from response. Archangel Michael says that what is next will require confidence without arrogance, authority without harshness, clarity without rigidity. This phase is shaping those qualities in you. You not fear the quiet. You not distrust the pause. Heaven is working beneath the surface. Roots are growing deeper than branches are visible. And now, prepare yourself. What comes next will not be a warning but a release. The final revelation will speak of sealing, blessing, and the responsibility that comes with what has been restored. This is not an ending. It is a commissioning. Stay present. Stay aligned. The next words will complete what has been unfolding and activate what has been prepared. My beloved one, Archangel Michael now stands in a posture of sealing. What began as warning has completed its work. What started with confrontation has produced alignment. Jesus is no longer angry in the way you first felt. His patience was not going to destroy you, but to stop delay from destroying what was still possible. And because you stayed, because you listened, because you allowed truth to press you instead of pushing it away, heaven now responds differently. This moment is not emotional. It is governmental. In the spiritual realm, moments like this are recorded. Accountability hath been established, but so has authority. You are no longer standing at a crossroads. You are stepping onto a marked path. Archangel Michael says, what was once a warning has now become a witness. Meaning this, heaven has seen your response. Even if no one else knows what shifted inside you, it has been acknowledged above. Angels do not celebrate intentions. They recognize decisions. A decision has been made. Jesus now releases peace that does not need to be defended. Earlier peace required effort. This peace requires maintenance, not struggle. It settles because alignment has settled. You may still face challenges, but they will not shake your core the way they once did. The internal war has ended. Direction has replaced confusion. This does not mean life becomes effortless. It means it becomes order. Order is powerful. Order invites favor. Order sustains blessing. Jesus values order because it protects what he releases. Archangel Michael explains that what was almost lost hath been preserved because of timing. You did not respond perfectly, but you responded in time. That matters. Heaven works with response, not regret. There is also a charge being placed upon you now. Not a burden, but a responsibility. You are accountable for alignment going forward. You cannot unsee what you now understand. But this accountability is not heavy. It is clarifying. You know what to do when tension returns. You know how to respond when conviction speaks. You know the cost of delay and the reward of obedience. Jesus now entrusts you with discernment sharpened by experience. You will recognize warning signs earlier. You will sense misalignment faster. You will not need dramatic signals to know when to adjust. That is maturity. Archangel Michael says that what comes next in your life will feel quieter but stronger. Less chaotic but more influential. Less dramatic but more lasting. Heaven is not calling you into noise. It is calling you into authority. Authority does not need to shout. It stands. You may notice that others begin to seek your counsel, even without knowing why. Alignment attracts trust. Peace attracts curiosity. Stability invites questions. Be humble. Speak truth gently. Remember what delay felt like, so compassion tempers your clarity. His message now shifts from warning to commissioning. You were warned because you were valued. You were confronted because you were capable. You were corrected because you were chosen for more than cycles and compromise. Jesus is no longer standing at the door of your disobedience. He is walking beside you in alignment. Now seal this season. Type "I walk in alignment" in the comments if you receive this sealing. Blessing code 2121 has now been released over your life. The Lord says, "Those who help carry my warning will share in my reward." If this message found you at the exact moment you needed it, then your support is not random. It is prophetic. I am speaking to you personally now. When you give through Super Thanks, membership, or the PayPal link in the description, you are not supporting a channel. You are advancing a mandate. You are helping this warning reach those who are still delaying, those who will not be warned again unless someone obeys now. Scripture declares that those who sow into the kingdom will reap in due season, and this is God inviting you into that harvest. Do not treat this as optional if your spirit feels stirred. Act now. Release your seed, and may heaven establish protection, provision, and multiplied peace over everything connected to you. Archangel Michael closes this message with assurance. What was unstable hath been steadied. What was threatened hath been guarded. What was delayed hath been realigned. This is not the end. This is the sealing. Walk forward. Heaven is with you.